HomeTime is sponsored by the Home Depot. You can go from wondering how to knowing how at the Home Depot. You can do it, we can help.
Hi, welcome back to HomeTime. We're in the process of finishing off a relatively underutilized part of this house, which altogether has 4 levels. And what we're talking about is the basement, which is kind of half set up for storage, exercise equipment, and a workshop, but it was still just a lot of concrete studs and insulation when we got here.
And now with a little bit of framing, some drywall, and some paint, we've got all 3 areas very clearly defined, along with a little room we have set aside for a wine cellar. And last time we put in a really neat floating floor featuring a linoleum surface and a gorgeous design.
We also got the workshop outfitted with a handy storage system that combines wire shelving and some ready-to-assemble cabinets, which are now ready for countertops.
We're going to show you a great way to protect your workshop walls from bumps and bruises.
And we thought we'd also start putting in some of the racks we've been working on for the new cellar.
That's right, and we have a gorgeous door to put in, so a lot of good stuff. We think you should stick around.
Should be interesting.
Yep.
HomeTime is also brought to you by GMC. We are professional grade.
Okay, we're getting ready to set our French door into the opening here going into the shop. Now it might seem a little odd to be using something as gorgeous as an oak French door like this going into a room like a shop. But bottom line, the only window on the whole lower level is in the shop. We want to get some of that reflected light coming into the exercise area.
That's right. Well, who says you can't have a nice door in a workshop?
This is a very nice finished space down here. I think an oak French door like that just really complements everything.
Yeah, well, something nice to look at when you're working out.
Now one thing that's a little different though, it's an interior door and we're attaching an oak threshold to the bottom of it. That's so we provide a transition between the floating floors, between the rooms. You'll notice on the back here we have this notched out a little bit, and that notch will just kind of sandwich itself in between the pieces of floating floor. So the bottom of this threshold, being notched out like it is, will sit directly on top of the concrete, and then the edges should just float on top of the flooring, and that looks like it's going to work beautifully.
Very nice. Now as you can see, we did take the door off of the jambs, so it's a good idea, whether it's a heavy door or in this case a glass door, to take it off the jamb. That's way it's a lot easier to work with, and it also helps protect your door.
Now because we do have a threshold on an interior frame like this, the installation is a little different. We'll want to make sure we put the door back on the hinges, check all of our reveals all the way around before we finish setting the door, nailing and doing all the shimming here on the jambs.
Now let's talk tough. Tough is what you need to line walls in a workshop. And what is tougher than diamond tread plate? That's the aluminum material that has a diamond pattern you see on semis and toolboxes and stuff like that. We have it in 12-inch squares with a self-stick backing, and we are using it here for a wainscot.
Process for putting this stuff on the wall: take off this sticky paper. This is like one big fly trap right here. Very, very sticky. Once I peel the paper off, I set it on the wall, line it up, get it where I want it, and then stick it on. And we're happy. And just Give it a few taps, push it on a little bit, move on to the next one. You want to be very careful when you're putting these on. Kind of set your corners, line them up. If you stick it, you got to take it off. It's a drag. We found that out the hard way.
Here's an example of how sticky these tiles really are. We had to take this one off to reposition it, and you can see here it took off not only a little bit of the paint, but also some of the joint tape, the joint compound, and even a little bit of the paper on the drywall. So when you're sticking these, you want to be sure they're right where you want them before you really press them down.
This could be compared to almost setting tile on a wall, but with this, you have no grout joints. You don't have any room for an adjustment. So you got to start out very square, very level, and if you do that, it should go just fine.
Well, we're working with a couple different colors here. First we have our liquid silver, which will be the bottom 2 rows, and that'll give you your classic diamond plate look. And then we're going to alternate the silver with some of this diesel black on the top 2 courses for this checkerboard pattern. And this material comes in a whole bunch of different colors, so it's really easy to add this decorative look, as well as a good layer of protection. Officially, it's a 1/16 of an inch thick, and it's real commercial grade diamond plate. Not like some imitation stamp metal that you might have seen before. Now, being aluminum, it's not going to rust, rot, or corrode. It's resistant to chemicals, grease, and oil, and if you make a mess, it's really easy to wipe clean. If you get to a point where you need to cut a tile or two, you can use just about any power saw with a metal cutting blade. But as always, eye and ear protection are strongly recommended. Now we have this on the walls, but you can also use it on the floor. And you might think that this shiny aluminum surface is going to be slippery once it gets wet, but actually the diamond plate is a naturally non-skid surface, which is exactly why they use it on stair treads on trucks and buses for safety purposes. So it's a good tough surface for floors and walls. There's no setup time or dry time involved. Just peel and stick and you've got yourself instant diamond plate protection. So it's looking really good, Bob.
Thank you.
Out in the exercise room, we also want to provide a little protection against nicks and dings. There are going to be free weights leaning up against this, as well as other exercise equipment in the area. So here we're doing a 3-piece system. The first piece is this vertical pine that's going in.
This stuff's going in very nice. It's a beaded ceiling southern yellow pine. And Dean's cutting them to 42-inch. We're putting a little bit of adhesive behind there. I'm nailing it to the bottom. There's a 2x4 plate down there. And then we're just nailing it to the sheetrock on top. Our panel cap will hold the top in, and the adhesive will hold the rest.
As you're putting this stuff up, you want to make certain that you put it up with the right side out. Sod's easy. That goes green side up. This is a little bit trickier. You have to watch the bead configuration, but been able to figure it out so far.
What we're doing is one side is beaded, and then this I think is a little more contemporary. That's a V joint.
One thing that's real important with rooms like this that are that have a lot of activity going on is you want to make certain that they're practical, that you're using the right materials in here. They're going to hold up over time. Now moving across the wall 3 inches at a time, you don't exactly go real fast here, but once we get a couple sections done, we'll come back and show you what we're going to do on the bottom and the top.
HomeTime is brought to you by GMC. We are professional grade. Dean Johnson here. On the next Home Time, we cover the basement walls with some knotty pine and some metal tiles. Check it out. This is Dean Johnson. On the next Home Time, we finish off the basement with a gun safe, a wine cooler, and the fanciest slop sink you'll ever see. Home Time is sponsored by the Home Depot. You can do it, we can help.
All right, so we still have a little bit left to go on the wainscoting. Judd's going to continue on that. In the meantime, Dan and I are going to take the wine cellar to the next level, and that is putting all the ladders together to form our racks. You might recall that a couple of shows ago, we milled up a bunch of redwood to get the racks started. Then we planed them down to smooth out the surfaces and hone them into the exact sizes. We built a jig to assemble the ladder-like pieces that will create the slots for individual wine bottles. And we notched out the horizontal trim pieces for the front and back that will exactly hold those ladders together. And now we get a chance to see if all of our intricate planning and carpentry will fit together into a very exquisite little puzzle. And so far it seems to be working, huh, Lenny?
The good thing about using a wood puzzle, Dino, is that we can cut the pieces if they don't fit. So
Let's hope we're not doing that.
Yeah.
All right. As you can see, we have our first long rack already put together. Basically just a combination of all of our tall ladders, and then we just take our horizontals, we slide those into the ladders, screw them down. This is the back side. This is ready to kind of temporarily set against our angled wall to see how it fits.
it's a pretty basic assembly. We have our front struts, we have our ladders, we have the two outsides. We slip the ladders into the front struts, put the back struts on, and then right now we're just kind of pinning everything together, because this is not show. Yep.
As we're putting these together, really about the only thing you have to worry about is getting your slots into your slots. Hopefully the homework we did before will put us in good stead now, because that's the crucial thing.
We're actually using a series of pre-drills and the right length screws. The key is to get center of the strut, center of the board, so you don't get any split outs. And it's just a basic countersink. It stops when you want it to. It's fit for the screws, so it's kind of hard to mess up.
Okay, so with that screwed down the back, now we can just gently roll it over, and we'll fasten the front side.
Attaching the front is basically the same as the back, except we're going to clamp everything together. We're going to pre-drill, except this pre-drill is going to be deeper, so we can end up plugging everything and make everything look seamless.
So to accomplish that, we're using a number 8 countersink bit like so, and we're going to match that up with a number 8 plug cutter. Now Bucky used this in our drill press a little while earlier, took some of our redwood, and he cut out these little plugs like so. So now all we have to do is take a screwdriver, pop these out, pop out pretty easily, and we end up with a nice little plug to fill all of our holes. Should work out beautifully. Here you go, Lenny. It's your first one.
How many plugs did Bucky cut?
Let's hope enough.
Putting plugs in are pretty simple. A little bit of glue, tap them tight. Thanks, Dino. But the secret is that we want the grains to line up, so I got to make sure the grains line one at a time, Dean. Make sure that the grains line up, and then after the glue hardens, we'll chisel or cut them off, sand everything in, and the holes will disappear. I think when we get done with this and we'll see all the little plugs all neatly sanded off and look at the exquisite detail, I think it'll be something that the homeowner can be proud of, and they can gracefully stack that wine in it. We got to be right about there.
Okay, now you can see how things are starting to look in here. We just want to temporarily place these in here right now because we have bulk storage we're going to be building up here. So if these in place, we can see exactly how much space we're working with, what we plan on doing. So once that bulk storage is built, then we can put everything back in again and then get everything attached permanently.
Can't believe this weather. Here it is March, it's snowing already.
No, I love it.
So we need a cart?
Yep, we got about 5 things. Let's get a pretty big cart.
Okay, we'll get one of these slotted ones. There's one right here.
Okay, perfect.
So we need some glue,
Yep, some tools, sander.
substrate for our countertops.
Yep, okay, so back at the workshop, we're all caught up on our diamond plate. Nice work,
Thank you very
by
much.
the way. Now we're working on our countertop. We need a substrate for that.
And 4x8, 3/4 sounds good to me.
This will cover both countertops, right?
I believe so because it is under 16 feet, so we get 1 8-footer and we should be good.
Okay, good, good.
Okay, you hang on.
Got it.
Here we go. Okay, there we go.
Nice.
I'm gonna go get some adhesive And I'll
Okay.
meet you back in my favorite area, the tool area.
Tools.
Okay.
Excellent.
Have fun.
Okay. Along the edges, we like to build up our countertop by about 1.5 inches, and instead of doubling up on the substrate, usually we just rip down pieces of extra particle board for that. But since we don't have any extra material on this particular job, we're just going to pick up some 1x4 pine and use that as our build-up.
Now, when gluing down our material to our substrate, we want to use a good quality contact cement and a good adhesive roller. If you don't use a good adhesive roller, you could end up with a big old mess, and we don't want that to happen to Judd.
Once everything is glued up, we're going to use a router and a flush trim bit to get the edges as smooth as we can.
One last thing to get, some 3-inch belts for our belt sander. And what I'm going to do with this is a lot of times your countertops have to be fit to the wall. The wall's never perfectly straight, so this is what you got to have.
Now we already have the material that we need to make the surface and the edges of the countertop, and if you haven't guessed yet what that material is, well, we'll just let that be Judd's surprise for later on in the show. Ready?
Let's go surprise him.
All right, let's.
HomeTime is brought to you by Carrier. Turn to the experts.